It was a cold winter morning. She sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket, her tea untouched, her eyes heavy with fatigue. The room was quiet, except for a faint cough that seemed to echo louder than it should. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost defeated. "I just don't feel like myself anymore." I felt a knot in my chest. Every winter it was the same. She grew weaker, sicker, more fragile. And deep down, I feared one day her body just wouldn't bounce back. But what I discovered shocked me. It wasn't just the cold. It was two simple things most seniors overlook: hydration and vitamin D. By changing the way I cared for her, her winters transformed from a season of decline into a time of strength, warmth, and even joy. And in this story, I'll show you exactly how we did it, so you too can protect the women you love from the hidden dangers of winter. But before I share the answer, let me take you back to where it all began. Her name is Patricia, 72 years old. To anyone who met her, she came across as warm and witty, with a sharp sense of humor that made you forget her age. Years ago, she was a teacher, one of those women who made her classroom feel like a second home. Outside of work, she loved gardening, humming old hymns while tending to her roses, and hosting Sunday dinners that filled her home with laughter. But now, her world looked very different. Patricia lived alone in a small, drafty apartment on the edge of town. Most winters, she barely stepped outside. She was proud, fiercely independent, but I could see the fear behind her smile, the quiet worry that she was losing her strength for good. By the time I began caring for her, I'd been in this work long enough to recognize the signs others might dismiss as just old age. Every winter, her energy dipped lower. She spent afternoons napping instead of reading her favorite books. Her appetite shrank. Her lips were dry, her voice heavy when she described herself as feeling dull, like the light's gone out of me. She turned down visits with friends, whispering excuses like, "I just don't feel up to it." As her caregiver, I'd been by her side for over a year. And though it was my job, it never felt like just a paycheck. Watching her fade each winter left me unsettled, almost frustrated with myself. I didn't want to simply keep her comfortable. I wanted to give her back some of the vitality she thought she'd lost forever. And that winter, as the days grew colder and her struggles harder to ignore, I began to realize something. What she was facing wasn't only about getting older. It had roots in small, hidden choices, things most seniors and even caregivers overlook. That's when I started searching for answers. Winter always seemed to close in on Patricia like a heavy curtain. Some mornings I'd arrive to find her still in her robe at noon, sitting in her favorite chair with a blanket wrapped tight around her shoulders. Her tea was often untouched, the steam long gone cold. Physically, I could see the toll. Her steps grew slower, her shoulders slumped, her hands trembled slightly when she reached for the remote. She caught little colds that lingered for weeks. Her lips were dry, her skin dull, and her joints stiffened so much that just standing up from the chair made her wince. Emotionally, it was harder still. The brightness in her voice, the sparkle that made her such a storyteller, faded. She'd joke sometimes saying, "I guess I'm just becoming an old lady after all." But behind the laugh, I heard the fear. Other times she whispered, "I don't want to be a burden." Those words stayed with me. From my side, I tried everything I knew at the time. I brought her extra blankets, prepared hearty soups, offered warm herbal teas. I suggested more naps, thinking rest would help, but instead it left her groggier and less alert. Heating pads gave her comfort for a while, but
The stiffness always returned. I even bought her multivitamins, but there was no real change, just more pills in the kitchen drawer. I felt like I was chasing shadows, treating symptoms, not the root cause. And every time she sighed, every time she turned down a visit from a friend with the words, "I just don't feel up to it," I felt a mix of empathy, frustration, and determination battling inside me. Deep down, I wondered if this was really just old age. Was decline and winter inevitable? Something no amount of care could reverse? That fear haunted both of us. But here's what I knew for sure. I wasn't ready to give up on Patricia. I couldn't. Somewhere, I felt there had to be a small clue we were missing. And one day, almost by accident, I found it.
It happened on one of those gray afternoons when the cold seemed to seep through the walls. Patricia had barely touched her lunch, and when I asked if she wanted tea, she waved her hand and said, "No, I've had enough." I realized then I couldn't remember the last time I'd actually seen her finish a glass of water. That small detail nagged at me. She wasn't sweating, she wasn't in the summer heat, but her lips were cracked, her skin looked dull, and her energy was flat. Could it be that simple? Was she quietly dehydrating, even in winter? That night, I went home and started searching. I read caregiving forums, medical articles, even chatted with another caregiver friend. A pattern kept showing up. Seniors often drink far less water in cold weather, and it can drain their energy, stiffen their joints, even affect their mood. Then I stumbled on another piece, vitamin D. In summer, Patricia used to sit in her little garden soaking in the sun, but all winter long, she barely stepped outside. Could her body be starving for something as basic as sunlight? At first, I doubted myself. Could something so ordinary, water and vitamin D, really stand against the heavy weight of her winter decline? Part of me felt foolish for even hoping, but another part of me couldn't ignore the possibility. The next morning, I decided to bring it up gently. When I told Patricia what I'd noticed, she raised an eyebrow, gave a half smile, and said, "So you're telling me all I need is sunshine and a glass of water?" There was skepticism in her voice, but also something softer, a willingness to trust me just enough to try. Inside, I felt a mix of nerves and cautious excitement. This wasn't a cure, it wasn't a miracle, but it was something we could actually do. Simple, natural, safe. That was the day we made a promise to take hydration and vitamin D seriously every single day. Neither of us knew if it would work, but deep down, I felt this could change everything. And so we began to build a little plan together. The first week was harder than I expected. I set gentle water reminders, keeping a warm mug of chamomile tea or broth within her reach. Patricia would sigh and say, "I'm not thirsty," pushing the cup aside. I learned not to push too hard. Instead, I made it feel like comfort, not a chore. Sometimes I'd sip alongside her, saying, "Let's just share this moment together." The second week, I decided we'd make a little adventure of it. We went shopping together. She leaned on the cart, teasing me about reading every nutrition label like it was a mystery novel. We picked out salmon, eggs, and a carton of fortified milk. At first, she wrinkled her nose at the idea of fish for breakfast, but I promised I'd find recipes that wouldn't feel like medicine. That night, I made a simple salmon chowder, warm, creamy, with the smell filling her small kitchen. She took a hesitant spoonful, paused, then gave a tiny nod. That nod felt like a victory. By the third week, I added another layer, sunlight. I moved her favorite chair closer to the window where the morning sun streamed in.
At first, she grumbled about the glare, but a few days later, I caught her sitting there on her own, eyes closed, soaking in the light. It was a quiet sign that maybe her body was craving this as much as her spirit. With her doctor's okay, I introduced a gentle vitamin D supplement after breakfast. Patricia smirked when I set it beside her toast, saying, "You're not letting me get away with anything, are you?" I laughed, but inside, I felt the weight of responsibility. I wasn't just helping her eat, I was fighting for her strength, one tiny step at a time. The changes didn't happen overnight. Some days she still felt sluggish, and I'd wonder if we were chasing another false hope. But then came the small moments. She finished her tea without me reminding her, or she hummed softly while folding laundry, something I hadn't heard in months. Her skin looked less dry, her eyes a little brighter. Those little shifts gave me hope, not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because I could see the fight in her returning. And then, something I hadn't seen in months began to return.
I'll never forget the first time I heard her humming again. She was standing by the window, folding laundry, the soft winter light warming her face. For weeks, that corner of the room had felt heavy and still. But now she was moving with a quiet rhythm, her voice carrying a little melody I hadn't heard since before the cold set in. Not long after, she surprised me by saying, "I think I'll go have coffee with Marjorie next door." My heart skipped. For months, she had turned down visits, always too tired or too foggy to manage. But now, she was choosing connection over isolation. It was such a simple invitation, coffee with a neighbor, but it felt like a mountain climbed. Then, one morning, as we sat with our tea, she looked at me with eyes that seemed clearer, brighter. She said, "I feel lighter, like I've woken up from a fog." Those words stopped me. I had watched her slip deeper into weariness every winter, and now here she was, reclaiming herself piece by piece. The tired, fading woman I worried over in December was now smiling, sharper, stronger by February. She wasn't just healthier, she was more herself. The spark was back, her independence intact, her dignity unshaken. And in that moment, I realized something bigger. It wasn't just about hydration and vitamin D. It was about proving that small, intentional care can change everything. Aging didn't have to mean decline. With the right attention, winter could be a season of strength, not surrender. That truth gave me hope, not just for Patricia, but for every senior woman who longs to feel steady, confident, and free. So, what exactly did we do, step by step? And how can you bring that same strength into your own winter?
When I think back on Patricia's winter, the truth is simple. It wasn't a miracle cure. It was one small habit, keeping her hydrated and steady with vitamin D. That's what turned her season of weakness into a season of strength. And here's how you can do the same, step by step. 1. Offer warm drinks often. Not just plain water, but tea, broth, or lemon water. It feels like comfort, not a chore. 2. Add vitamin D-rich foods to daily meals. Eggs at breakfast, salmon for dinner, or a glass of fortified milk. Small bites add up. 3. Invite the sun in. Even 10 to 15 minutes by the window or a chair placed where the morning light hits can make a difference. 4. Talk to a doctor about safe supplements. Sometimes food and sunlight aren't enough. A gentle, approved supplement can bridge the gap. 5. Make it a ritual of care, not a task. A warm cup placed in her hands. A sunny spot chosen just for her. These moments feel like love, not medicine. Patricia's story proves it. Little by little, those steps lifted her out of winter fog and gave her back her spark. And I want you to remember this, from my heart to yours.
if you're a woman over 60, or if you love one, I want you to hold on to this truth. Your winters don't have to mean decline. Your independence, your vitality, your dignity, they're worth protecting. That's why I share these stories, because no woman should feel like she has to face aging alone. Here at Senior Health Stories, this is our Caregiver Circle, a place where you can listen, learn, and share. So if Patricia's journey touched you, I'd love for you to subscribe, join our circle, and maybe even share your own story in the comments. How have you or someone you love stayed strong through the colder months? Your words might be exactly what another woman needs to hear. And if you'd like a little extra support, I put together something special, Stronger Than You Think. It's a guide filled with caregiver stories and simple daily habits to keep your body, mind, and soul fresh after 60. Think of it as a gift of guidance from me to you. The link is right in the description. Remember this, your story isn't over. In fact, with the right care, it's just beginning. You are stronger than you think. See you in the next video.